Hello everyone, in today's tutorial we are going to see how to host a REST API endpoint in a Spring Boot application. So this tutorial is a continuation of last tutorial, which is about spinning up a Spring Boot application in a minute. So to make a class as a REST controller, as a API hosting class, you have to annotate the class with @REST controller. Now Spring knows that it's an API hosting class. So the next thing you have to do is like to annotate the method with @getMapping if it's a get request, and @postMapping if the request is a post request. Once you have all these done, then let's have a look at the first method, user by ID. What we are doing here is like we annotate the method with @getMapping, and then the user is a URI, and followed by the dynamic parameter we pass in the URL. To get the dynamic parameter, use the annotation @path variable, and then the type of the parameter, and then give it a name. So now we get the ID from the path of the URI. So you pass the ID to the user service class that get the data from the user repository and pass it here. And now you're checking if the user is present. If the user is present, you're returning the user to the caller. If it's not present, then you're returning back a bad request. Similar for the next endpoint, instead of an ID, we are getting the user first name from the URI, and then calling the user service to get the user given the first name. And the next API endpoint is a post endpoint. Here we are getting the user that to be saved from the request body, and then say calling the user service with the user and returning the saved user to the caller. So now let's have a look at the user service class. So you can see it's very simple. It has three methods: one to save the user, another to get the user given the ID, another to get the user given the first name. For the first two methods, it's quite handy. It comes out of the box from Spring, like as long as your user repository extend curl repository, then it comes with the find by ID method. You don't have to implement anything, you just have to call find by ID, then Spring will make sure that you return the user for that ID. ID is a primary key in our case, just to remember. And then for the find by username, you have to do a bit more work. You have to tell Spring that I'm finding the user by the first name. So this first name should match the name you declared in the user model. So first name, so you give by use. This name should be exactly the same as the user model. If it's the same, it will work nicely. And now Spring knows like you are trying to find the user with the first name. It's select star from user, where user first name equal to the first name. It's a query that will be executed. Now Spring already know how to do it, and then it's returning back the user to you. So now let's quickly test all these URLs with the Postman. So let's quickly actually start up the application and test all the URL we have created here in Postman. So first is a save request. I'm saving the user Tom with the following details. So once the user is saved, you will get 200 with the saved user in response. And for the get, you pass the username in here, and then you get the response back like this. If you pass ID, you'll get the response for the. So if you pass the ID, you'll return back the user corresponding to the given ID. So that's all for this tutorial. I will see you in the next tutorial, which is about configuring Swagger for these API endpoints.